All right. Hey, and welcome to episode 34 of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo.
And we are back. We're back, and we're going to kind of follow suit with the last episode and just touch on what all of a sudden seems to be everybody's favorite car. What's that?
The R34 Skyline.
Boom. And if you're watching on YouTube, you should see behind us, we do have an R34 GTT in the studio as an example. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I feel like everybody's heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, if you're into cars the slightest bit, you know what a Skyline is.
Right. I mean,
crazy.
you know
Especially
what a Skyline is, but you know what an R34
Right,
is.
especially the 34.
Yeah. Real quick, we do have kind of experience with both the 32, the 33, and the 34.
Right.
And I mean, I feel like both the 32 and the 33 get plenty of attention.
Yeah.
And we haven't really gotten out in the 34 that much, but I feel like it's following suit.
Yeah, for sure, because it's just one of those cars that doesn't look like anything else out on the road, whereas, I don't know, the 33 and the 32s kind of look their age, I guess you could say, and when someone sees it, they're just like, oh, whatever, or that's a cool car with a wing. What is that, a Prelude or something? Whatever.
But the 34 is kind of on a styling level of its own.
Yeah, you don't see it like anything else like that. I can't think of another car that looks like an R34.
Impala. Just kidding.
That's the closest thing, though.
Like a Cobalt, but like that's just because
just
of the taillights. Yeah. So let's get into it. So the 34, what would you say was one of the defining moments in the R34's history that kind of brought it to the masses?
I think it's like probably two things.
Yeah.
First one being, like everyone says, Gran Turismo, the video game.
For sure.
Like that was one of the first times I played. Like this is the first time I've found out what a Skyline was, and especially the R34, because like one of the arcade modes, that was like one of the first cars like that you could pick. Yeah, and it was that Bayside blue, and that for some reason that color like just always stuck out. Like that just Bayside blue. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's iconic
Classic.
in itself, right? So I think Gran Turismo is one thing, and then Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah.
It had way more of a part in the movie than the first Skyline in the first movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, especially where the movie let out with that car, and it kind of stunk, and I know I was like bummed that like the car got taken out, in those first few scenes.
I was kind of bummed it had rally stripes, but whatever.
I mean, me too, but we're talking, I think that one's 03, that Too Fast, Too Furious came out. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was period correct.
Yeah.
For that, for what it was supposed to be, no, it was right.
Yeah, and so, no, I agree. I think, especially with the purge for the nitrous and stuff, like, it really built up that car and kind of made it like a hero, whereas, the Gran Turismo, that was a stock car, so to speak, right? That you could kind of upgrade, but it wasn't so glorified. It was another one of the models that was included in the game.
Right. And it was like the fast one, though. It was like the one that everyone always picked.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't know like even what it was. But it looked cool and had that nice color.
And I would say on the Too Fast, Too Furious thing, I think between that and Gran Turismo, that brought awareness to the other models, the 33 and the 32.
Yeah,
people were like, what is this Skyline thing? And in turn, they end up, oh, wow, there's these models before it, And so, I mean, even though some people clown on, like, the whole Fast and the Furious involvement and, Paul Walker's involvement, it's like, it really did help create, like, a whole following.
Yeah, for sure. If
really
there wasn't... if there wasn't those two things, I mean, dude, would we be sitting here?
Right, exactly.
Would we be talking about Skylines right here? Or would we be talking about Camaros and Mustangs
Oh,
or whatever?
No, stop
you
it.
know what I
no,
mean?
No, that couldn't be it. But so, I mean, from there, you know, because Skyline was already a popular thing in Japan, like this, you know, this just helped bring awareness more globally of the car, because, you know, over 90% of the Skylines produced stayed in Japan, especially GTRs.
Yeah.
So it was already a thing in Japan. And so we were earlier looking at this Super Street magazine.
Yeah.
And we were just tripping. It's from 2003. We were just tripping on like, oh, wow, yeah, I remember, you know, this and that and the other. And while we're flipping through, I mean, what? How many R34 ads did we
Quite a few. Like
it,
Apex was one of them. And just
Ray's had one.
Ray's had one.
Yeah.
They had the Signal Auto. Like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, and they were pretty new back then. Because, I mean, I'd imagine those cars are 01, 02.
Yeah, exactly.
2000, whatever.
Yeah. So they were 4 years old, maybe.
Right. So it's kind of crazy. And that was still, like, quite a long time ago. Yeah. So, I mean,
20 years.
If you were looking at Super Streets, you know, you might figure it out.
Right.
But.
And that was after, I mean, that was right when Too Fast, Too Furious came out, but that was after the first Fast and the Furious. So,
for sure.
You know, interest in sport compacts or import cars like really went up in 2001. So, it is crazy. And then, of course, you know, R34 started showing up in a variety of racing series and, you know, just different events like that. And some of those cars became, like, iconic. Yeah.
For sure.
And so I know there's one that you love and you would love to touch on.
Oh, yeah. So one of the most iconic R34s to me personally, it's the reason why I like four-doors so much. And it's because the Blitz ER34 drift Skyline that Ken Nomura drove.
Yeah.
That car was always so cool.
It really was.
I didn't even really realize it was a non-GTR, like, until I, like, whatever, really started reading about it. I'm like, oh, okay. That's okay, because it's rear-wheel drive. Okay, cool. Wait, it has 4 doors? Oh, and they never made 4-door GTRs. Oh, that's even cooler. So this guy has, like... and so, like, it turned me onto, like, the 4 doors, the 4-door chassis of the Skylines, and, like, that's one of the reasons I think why I love the sedans is because of seeing that car, like, and being into drifting back in the day. That was just like, all right, yeah, that'll be my thing. I think that's cool. No one else is doing that. Only he is, right? Everyone else has the coupes.
Yeah.
This guy's cool because it always had the sick livery and, like, good color combos. So it was like...
It really was
perfect.
Yeah, with, like, the reflective blitz and, like, the chrome, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, watching those old videos, like, he always stood out because he had a 4-door and it was longer and it just, like... It wasn't stout and, like, short like these other vehicles. It was like a long car ripping around the track, and plus he was like a cool
character.
driver.
Yeah, and he was in all the options or a lot of the options and stuff like that. He did way more than just a driver, I feel like.
Yeah, he was a personality. Yeah, for sure.
And it was also cool to see, like, in the Street League series, like the Street Legal series, when he drove that, it was the same thing. It was a 34 sedan, but, you know, had full interior, bolt-in cage, had a more stock engine, still had the RB25, stuff like that. So it was cool to see him, like, stick to that.
Right. He was cool. True to it, yeah. So one of my, I would say, iconic R34s would be the Pennzoil R34. That's, like... You know, that bright yellow livery with the, of course, Pennzoil on it.
Right.
And, you know, it won that 99 championship. Yeah. And then that blew up and there was all of the die cast and all of the collectibles about it.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that it stuck with the RB26 and, like, still won was, like, pretty cool to me. And hopefully at some point because I know that this car is still in Japan.
Yeah. It's at one of the
museums, right?
Museums, yeah.
I hope to see it.
I think Zama.
Just because it really is like when it comes to R34, like track cars, that was like
right
at the peak, because they had just came out with the 34, came out with it and they won. So that's
sick.
one to me. And I know you were talking about the story earlier about another one of these iconic cars.
Yes.
And I didn't know if you could just rip through briefly how much of a wild, this car that a lot of us grew up, seeing poster on our wall.
Right. So, if you got a Super Street or like one of the other car magazines back in the day, there was that BFG ad. And one year they had like posters of it. And it was the iconic Bayside Blue R34. And the caption at the top of the picture was track meet with like MEAT.
Yeah.
talking about the tires, of course, or whatever. But like super corny ad, but super cool shot of the car. And like it was on some T37s, I'm pretty sure.
It was. Yes, it was.
And that was iconic for a lot of people because I had that on my wall.
Yeah,
same with you.
Yeah,
so the dudes that knew, I'm sure it's the same thing. So a little bit about that car. I read a little backstory earlier about it. A guy in the military originally bought it brand new in Japan.
That would have been sweet.
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine buying one of these brand new.
In Japan. For that actual initial cost. Yeah, that would be sick.
So, long story short, he had Motorex try to do some stuff to get it legalized over here.
Classic.
And pretty much the shady guy in Motorex ended up like letting Paul Walker borrow it at one point.
Wow.
Letting Gretty borrow it, like letting all these companies borrow it and like not really telling them it's this guy's.
He's overseas.
Yeah. And it got impounded at one point, like all this crazy stuff, but it was also a SEMA car, I'm pretty sure, and was like for that ad campaign. It was dressed up for that.
Wow. So like this military guy sends his car to get federalized.
Yeah.
Ends up starring in an ad commercial, which he doesn't probably benefit off.
Yeah, he didn't. Oh, yeah, and he didn't know anything about any of this. He was never informed about any of this. So, like,
imagine
Hero or whatever the guy's name is from Motorex. Like, if you know the Motorex story, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, and right. So, and you can find out about the Motorex story. Definitely was a big thing at a certain point, and they put together between 14 and 16 cars that they were having federalized. Didn't really work out how they were thinking, but you should look into that if you would like a really interesting story.
But I mean, dude, speaking on Motorex real quick, I don't know how I found out about Motorex back in the day. It might have been an ad in a magazine or like a little article about them or something like that. But I remember going to my grandma's house, getting on her computer, typing in the website.
Oh, yeah.
And checking their stock. And that's how I found out about the 33s and the 32s and like kind of started putting the puzzle together. You know what I'm saying? And like just being able to see the cars like that. And it's like, oh, wow. And then I don't know, like, if it weren't for Motorex being able to do that and being able to get that first impression on those other models as well.
Yeah.
Like,
so they definitely helped bring attention in a positive and negative way.
Yeah.
Like the whole scandal or whatever. It was definitely a negative thing.
That definitely sucks. It put a halt to anything that we could have done to have these cars sooner.
Right. And so, there's always been, kind of different police vehicles in Japan, and a lot of people know about the R34s that were made into police vehicles, and they did 5 marked vehicles, 1 unmarked vehicle, and this was in the early 2000s that like this really happened, and I thought that was really cool. If you get a chance, Google R34 police car. They look cool. There's still one in service. And I can't remember the exact place in Japan. It's a little small town, and they still got their R34 in service, and it's like displayed out in this like open garage that
that's
like
so
people
cool.
can see it. Yeah,
because like where else were they going to do that?
Right.
Like, that's so cool. I mean, I'm sure people go there too, and just
oh
for
yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure. I think that's like part of it. It's like kind of crazy.
I wonder why they did that. Were they trying to? Was that when they were cracking down on street racing and they needed something to
a little more, yeah.
right?
Or like, were they trying to fit in? Like,
were they GTRs or GTTs?
So like, I believe that they are GTRs.
I think they were badged and stuff as GTRs, right?
Yeah, and so, but earlier I had read that they were ER34s. So that would be a GTT.
Yeah.
So I can't really find clarification on it, but regardless, like, cool, right? Even if they were badging them as GTRs to make people think they had faster cars,
right?
I mean, but so that is like, you know, one of the cool things how like the police will kind of take, because when we were over there, we saw like different police cars, you know, and we were different. Like, what they're using these, you know?
Yeah, the undercovers and the crowns.
Exactly. So yeah, that was one of the things. But so if you're wanting to get, like, because everybody wants an R34, right? And if you listen to our previous episodes, you know, the GTT behind us, legal as of 98, first GTR becomes legal in 99. Right. So if you want something, or if you wanted something in the past, you would need to, your vehicle would need to qualify under what's known as show and display.
Right.
And so this is the only way to have a legal R34 in the United States. GTR federally.
Right.
Yes. So, and how do you qualify as show and display? It's generally a model thing, right?
Yeah.
Like certain models.
It has to be so limited.
Right, exactly. So I do have here that it is the V-Spec in Midnight Purple 2, which is a super desirable color.
Right. That's actually, I believe, what Adam LZ has.
Yeah.
Is his R34 is a Midnight Purple 2 car, and that's why it's been here for so long. That's how he's had it for so long, because it's under show and display.
And a lot of people don't get it, and they're like, oh, he has it here legally and blah, blah. You know, no, it's under show and display. Nobody's going to literally show and display an R34 like that,
right?
Knowing like how things go and not have it be legit, you know, unless they're foolish. But, and then if you have a M-Spec NER, which a guy that we know from Nashville, Sebash, has one of those.
Yeah.
I got to see it in person, like, beautiful car.
It's Millennium Jade.
Oh, so it's like the cream of the crop when it comes to that. Or if you have a V-Spec N1 or a V-Spec 2 N1, those all qualify for show
good
and
luck
display.
on those last two, though, right?
Yeah, well, right, exactly. Like the N1 is what it says, you're not getting one.
Yeah.
I mean, so...
yes, exactly.
Yes, so... you know, there's a lot, like when it comes to the R34, so when we talked about the R33 last week, we read through the different kind of options and different submodels and specialties and stuff. And it felt like, you know, for the R33, there was a few, you know, like, because we had the Autech, we had the 400R, you know, but when you get to the R34, it's like a whole thing. Like, they went crazy. Yeah. Like, I don't know who they had, like, doing this, but they had quite a bit, you know, when it comes to it. So when it comes to specialized versions, right, you have the V-Spec 2 NER and the M-Spec NER. So do you know what the NER means?
Nürburgring?
Yeah, so that's part of the special edition, right? And so there was 1,000 V-Spec 2 NER and M-Spec NERs, period.
Right.
Like, that's really, really rare. And so...
But not that bad whenever you compare it to other, like, R33s and 32 special editions. Like...
Right. Well, you're right. No, I agree. Like, 400R. And
that's like double of, like, how many 32 Nismos there were.
That's true. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, so the M-Spec NER, like Sebash has, there was only 285 of those. He has one of 285, dude.
Yeah.
That's.
I'm sure Nissan still has a few of those. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah. A lot of those are in collections, I'm sure.
And so, you know, beyond that, straight up M spec, no NER. There was 366 built. And then you have those N1s that we said you're not getting one. Well, that's because the straight V-Spec, there was 38, and the V-Spec 2, there was only 18 N1s built. So you're really not getting them, you know? And when we're talking about LZ's car, right?
The Midnight Purple.
Why is that show and display eligible? Like, why is that? It's a color, that's it. Well, there was only 347 built.
Right. Not that many.
Not that many at all. And the Midnight Purple 3, which was like the second generation, was only 199 built. Like that's not much at all. So, you know, and these are all the specialty models and colors. These are the ones that are really rare, sought after. You know, and then of course there's just the base model and the V-Spec. In the V-Spec 2 when it comes to your standard kind of models that won't be eligible until the year that they're eligible. Right. You know, which again starts in 99. So that's like, you know, kind of a lot of just models, right? And then
for just GTRs. Like that's just like the high end, and it keeps just going higher and higher and higher and higher.
But then you go to the, like what we discussed last time, the Nismo Omari factory cars. Yeah. And now it's a whole different thing. Yeah. Now it's a whole different thing. Like you have Z-Tune.
Right.
Only 19 built.
Yeah.
And
one of those lives in a bubble in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. One of them is in the Global Auto Owners, you know, private collection. Yeah. Right. And that's 2. There's only 17 that we haven't talked about. You know? And
that's all of them.
So they also did something called the R-Tune and S-Tune, and these were special editions based on aero and engine.
Right, and that's the R1 or the S1 logo that they put on the the back on the trunk.
Yes, exactly. They do have specialized badging, and then, you know, depending on which model of the R or S-Tune, if the motor's done, you know, it also has badging there too. Which, you know, like... So if you're not familiar, the Z-Tune is kind of like the best of the best, so to speak, you know, and
they're not making any more of those.
Right, exactly. And the R and S Tune are just kind of
like a service. Inflating.
Oh, like bad. Like you brought a briefcase, dude. You brought a briefcase. And so along with the R Tune and S Tune, which are like complete packages, there's the F Sport and the Sports Resetting. And so the Sports Resetting is no motor, and the F Sport is minor motor, along with like powertrain, chassis, all of that stuff. You know, and then just like with the R34, you can get the club and race spec and the restored options. Right. And that's so one guy took the restored options to like the next level. Dude. I can't, what's his name? It's
His Highness Prince something.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Okay, so it's Tunku Abdul Rahman Hassanal Jeffrey Abini Sultan Ibrahim, also known as Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, Prince of Johor, Malaysia. He has,
dude,
his name is, remember, his name is Jeffrey.
Yeah.
He has
the ultimate one of one.
A J-Tune. Yeah. He paid enough to get Nismo, a Mori factory, to create a J-Tune.
And like the badging has the Malaysia flag with the Japanese flag.
Yes.
Like,
and calls him His Highness.
Dude dude, like, what? Wow. Like chassis number 1.
Yes. And like, it's like what? Beautiful. Like it's obviously
dude, completely... how much money, dude, did he pay to have him put...
And it's like all updated, cow. So it kind of blends new and old, I feel like, the way that they did everything with it. It's like...
Dude, it's insane.
Really beautiful car. So if you got enough money, you could get a T-Tune or whatever you're trying to get, an A-Tune, whatever. Dude, like if you got the money, you can get it.
I don't even know if I could have... Dude, that is crazy. I bet... I can't even imagine the number that dude paid to have that done. Like,
too much.
That's just, dude, it's just insane.
So, you know, that's kind of like the broad range of like what Nissan released in those years, you know, leading up to the expiration of the R34. And, you know, so the real question kind of is where does that leave us today when it comes to the R34 and its accessibility, its pricing, its how many are even left, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, so some of the lower models that are starting to come in now, they're still kind of pricey. Like for the RB20E automatic sedan like beater, it's still like, dude, I mean, it's definitely over 15.
Yeah.
Usually around 18, 20, even higher for some examples. But for a GTT, like a nice one or a decent one, 30 to 35 plus.
Over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's insane. Like, and it goes up from there just for GTTs.
Yeah, I mean,
they are way higher priced than the models before them, for sure. Like 100%. Like, doesn't even compare to the 32 GTS and the 33 GTS.
Yeah, and so, right, what do you think, like, as the GTRs, okay? Because, yeah, we know, just kind of like it was for a little bit with the R33s, like the submodels kind of come up in price. I mean, there wasn't, as much hype on the R33 with the RB25 and the single turbo as there is with the R35 with the R34 with the RB25 and the single turbo.
Right. Because it's just that chassis, right? It's the body style.
It's the body style. Everybody
it's everything.
And so just like looking real quick, like a GTT is right now between, they're closer up to the 40s, 45 range in Japan. And so where does that put the GTR in the 1999s in 2024?
Right.
Where does that put those?
Dude,
like,
you're not going to be able to find one for under $100,000.
Yeah, which I don't even think you necessarily could right now.
Yeah, no way. I mean, I'm sure right now you get that one that seeps through, like it's kind of beat and whatever.
Oh, for sure.
But moving forward, like those are all gone. Like there's not going to be a cheap 34 GTR.
Yeah,
like it's going to be insane.
So and I mean, like I bought mine like 7 months ago now, and it wasn't cheap,
right?
And it's not lost any value,
right?
That's for sure. It hasn't. It's not going down,
right?
How
do you feel about, like, silly question, but is it worth it?
The car?
Like, is it worth the money that you pay? The GTR, the 34 GTR, like, given everything else on the market for the same price range, like.
Yeah, because of what we've discussed in this episode, because it's worth it, not because like, oh, it's some supercar, it's some big horsepower car, or it's some, whatever. It's worth it because of what it means to me personally, having that vehicle, especially my situation, being able to drive it in Japan and experience it from like a whole perspective that a lot of people with way better R34 GTRs never even get to experience.
Right.
So for me, is it worth it? Yeah, I mean, especially when it's here and I'm able to get it to exactly where I want it.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's a major checkbox stemming all the way back to what we initially talked about. And so if we ask the question, what makes the R34 arguably the most popular import car like in the world?
Yeah.
It's because of how ingrained it is in the fabric of our community, right? That's why it's the most popular. It's not because it's the fastest car. It's not because it's the best body line. I mean, it's arguably does have.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's because of those sequence of events between, the two things that we discussed at the beginning, along with everything else being peppered in, that turned it into it's not just because Paul Walker drove it.
Right.
It's not just because it was on the BF Goodrich poster.
Right.
It's all of that combined, everything that we've discussed and way more.
Yeah.
is why I think it's so loved by many.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's just one of those questions one of those things that people always argue is like, oh, it's not worth that. You can get so much more of a different car for that much money. Blah, 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 blah. But like, who cares? Like, because, dude, yeah, it's what you want, right? And it's that box checked. It's that thing that's been, up here for the longest time, and you finally
over 20 years, right? And so it's finally there, and so you're living that out, which some people don't get the opportunity to do, and maybe some people never had that in the beginning, so they don't have anything to
they don't even
out.
know what that feeling is, or maybe they don't care about that feeling,
right? Maybe it's not their thing. But yeah, I think that a lot of guys, whether it is a R34 GTR or an HNR 34 four-door, right? It's the whole thing. It's not just about that GTR badge. It's crazy. It's like it's a whole thing. And anybody listening to this that feels that same way gets it. Without even having to explain it. But we want, being the 34th episode, we really felt like we wanted to give the R34 its flowers, so to speak, do a whole episode on it.
Yeah.
Did we touch on everything about the R34? It's out on YouTube, whatever. But for now, episode 34, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.